What's up, Scrub Hub?
Hey, that was like a boom. I love that cadence. The cadence
Yeah.
we got. We're getting that down.
We're
Sounds really
pretty
nice.
good. What episode is this?
This is
Technically episode 2. Because we had episode 0.
we had episode 0, episode 1,
and
episode
2.
2.
So there was a short last week.
The short was last week. So shorts. So all right. First off, I'm Doc Bishop.
My name is NevrEndingPants.
Boom. Well, I mean, if you're gonna use your whole name, my name's RX_Bishop_MD. But here at the Scrub Hub, I go by Doc.
Pants.
There we go.
It's intros, whatever.
So yeah. So if you noticed last week, we had what we call shorts. Shorts is a episode oriented completely, the whole episode, which was probably pretty long.
Yeah.
We talked about an entire game, Ocarina of Time.
Yep.
It was a blast.
That's right. The legend. There's a lot to listen to in that episode. If you haven't listened to that episode, we could throw a card up or something if you're watching on YouTube or, if you're listening on Spotify, Google, whatever. Go ahead and jump back to that previous episode because there's a lot of good talking about
Tons. We talked a ton about stuff. So that was a blast. Oh, I was going to say, I should have said this last episode, but the whole time, every time I saw Link, I always called Link Zelda, and every time I saw Zelda, I always called her Link.
Dude.
Almost every time.
God damn you.
Just because the memes, man.
Yeah, bringing back the whole, the 2000 and, what is that? It's got to be like 2014,
It was
right?
my first playthrough, so I had to, I inserted all the memes wherever I could. It was awesome. Anyway, so today we're talking about Mortal Shell. We're continuing from where we did last time. Last time we talked about the beginning of the game, all the way up to Emerald. We had a blast. It was a good time.
Man.
And
so now we have the second half of the game.
So now we have the second half of the game. And the reason we broke this into 2 halves and not like 3 or 4 pieces is, one, for time. Like, we respect your time. You're coming and hanging out with us. It's awesome. But 2, the gameplay loop, the go find a boss, go beat the boss, return back to the tower, is the exact same for the rest of the game. You're just experiencing it in 2 more dungeons.
That's right.
And you're coming back and then fighting a final boss.
Even the enemies were, honestly pretty similar.
Yeah.
They're just a little flavorful.
I'll tell you what, like my favorite part about the game is the unique enemies in each dungeon. Right? So we didn't talk about this, but we kind of did. The dual blade fire guys in the in Imrod's dungeon, right? Those guys were super cool. In the twins area, you have the crossbows, and
they did actually have a couple unique
the
characters.
guy with the big giant hammers and stuff.
That's right, yeah.
Those are super cool. And in the in Tarsus, you had they weren't Grishas, but they were Grisha-like. There's also the guy with the mace and the shield and stuff. There were some really cool unique animals.
Yeah.
Unique animals. They were animals.
Yeah. The
enemies is what I was trying to say.
The one enemy that I was like, come on, man, this is so silly, was the guy with the shield and a flail. He literally the first time I went up to fight one, because I think the flail weapon is super sick. I was like, oh shit, this is gonna be dope. And he went to go bash me with the shield. I hardened and it just broke. I was like,
oh, the shield broke?
It shattered, and then I hit him twice.
I've never seen that.
Dead.
I've never seen the shield break.
Dude, and every time I encountered one of those enemies, I would just literally walk up. Again, we're gonna talk about this a little bit more in the second half of the episode, but this to call back call forward to later part of the episode. One of the things I didn't quite love about this game.
It's a bummer. All right, so okay, so let's go back a little bit. What is Mortal Shell?
Mortal Shell, basically, if we can round it out, it's not a Dark Souls game.
It's not Dark Souls. It's similar, though.
Yes.
It clearly borrows from Souls games.
Yes, it's very heavily inspired.
Which is fine. I think that's fine. And they did a great job.
Yeah, it's actually, for not being a From Software game, it's very impressive. I
remember something we didn't do last episode.
What's that?
It doesn't matter. We'll do it in this one.
Okay. But, for not being a From Software game, they actually, I think, succeeded in a lot of areas at complementing the genre of a Souls-like game.
Yeah.
You know what
I
I
mean,
mean?
it definitely feels there's Souls. We know the Souls games. Demon Souls, Dark Souls, 1, 2, 3, Sekiro's a Souls game, Bloodborne, and isn't there one more? Am I missing one?
Um,
Well, no. Those are the Souls. Those are the FromSoft games.
yes. I mean, you even have on some facets Neo.
Well, I was going to say that was actually the other game, and Neo is a Souls-like game, but
It's by Team Ninja.
it's Team Ninja's Souls, and they approach that in a completely different way too. But it feels like a Souls game, and it
Yeah.
operates like a Souls game. And Sekiro fits into that pocket, or not Sekiro, freaking Mortal Shell fits into that pocket also of it being like a Souls game.
Yeah, and it's got its own little like gimmicks, mechanics that you get to learn, and it will craft and shape the way that you end up like encountering areas, or how to approach certain enemies, like, and whatnot. So I think there's a lot of expression of the game with as limited as it may seem from the outside looking in. But once you get in and you start actually like investing in potentially one of the shells or maybe a weapon that you like, I think there's a lot of different ways to play the game to satisfy you for a Souls game.
I think going into it, it's phenomenal. The game's
Going into it, yes, because
if you think it's a Souls game, I think you're gonna be disappointed, and
I
think that maybe where we kind of have that fall off, where we're like, oh, we expected something, we expected a consistent something, and it didn't quite get there.
Yeah, don't go into it with a. First off, we need to talk about like guys got to remember the price point on it. Like, I don't know what price you guys may have paid for it, but you certainly didn't pay From Software price for it. So right off the rip, there has to be an expectation set by the price point that you're getting this game at. And then also, just as equally to that, when you play it, remember how much you paid for it, because you're getting a lot.
It's a lot.
And the team, we've talked about this a little bit. What's the team again?
Cold Symmetry.
Cold Symmetry. So, to my understanding, we didn't.
And Playback, I think Playback Games is the publisher. Cold Symmetry is developers, though.
Okay. So, as far as like the minimal research we did, because I didn't do like a hard investigation on this or whatever. Maybe in the future we can do a little bit better. But you said it's their only game, which is like super
unless they have
impressive.
something else that I just couldn't find,
like an early demo or But that is super impressive and it's important to say this as a preface so that when we go into the second half later, after we're done discussing the first half of the game and whatnot, that it's all coming from constructive criticism.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, it's all constructive criticism. It's what we do. This is our second episode of Mortal Shell. We're coming in. We've played this game. We played in a segment. We broke that down. Now we're playing in a second segment. Now we're literally breaking down it all and then comparing the two things, the two halves of the game that we've played. Side note though, when you played, you know how like these guys had like pumpkin heads and stuff?
Yeah.
I want to say props to Cold Symmetry on this, but that is part of their fall update. That's not a normal part of the game. When the game came out and then like Halloween and stuff came around, they pushed a patch that did that, added like pumpkins everywhere and pumpkins on enemies' heads.
That's super cool.
Stuff. It was funny. Super cool. It was a lot of fun. The first time around, it was really cool to see it again when it came back around. So let's talk about the bosses. I think we did the bosses in the same order, right?
Yeah.
So we did, last time we talked about Imrod, the fire guy, blah, 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 whatever. Cool. Go back to that episode. You can find it and watch that and get our viewpoints. But then there were 3 other bosses after that, one being the final boss. But the next boss was the twins, I believe. So we go through this Nexus crazy, like...
The way I would describe it is it was literally like the Fortress of Solitude in terms of like So when you see the Fortress of Solitude, you see all these like crystals
and spikes and stuff. That's how this was. It was kind of like all broken and crumbly, and like they're teleporters to get around. Did you get lost in those teleporters, or did you say screw it and you just...
Well, So I started to mess with the teleporters at first, but then I very quickly realized that I just needed to go to the middle, like go down and go to the middle, and that's where the torches were. But like,
Well, that's where one was. That's where I think the first one was.
you go down, but then you go equally,
Right,
you
and
go
then you go
to the
each
right,
left, right, and then you have
left,
to find them. Yeah.
But you don't need the teleporters to do any of that. Like, you know what I mean? You literally don't. Like, you literally just walk down, go to the right.
You're right.
You just don't need any of that stuff.
You're right.
But
it's just the teleporters to get to the
excuse me.
Teleporters to get to the next area after you do the torches.
So this area, I think, and we can talk about this a little bit more later on because I just touched on it a bit in the second half. When we actually get to talk, more criticism.
Yeah.
But this area was, I think, the area that actually broke the game for me.
Really?
Yes, because
I think this was like, in the grand scheme of things, I think it's one of my favorite areas.
Really? Well, I think
except for one part.
There were from this point on, in how you said, I agree 200% how you said coming into this game, it feels awesome. It feels so good. It's exciting. I have to say very quickly, I'm not entirely sure yet after playing it that I'm certain that it was a placebo of having this expectation of playing a new Dark Souls game because I love, this kinds of games. So I might have had a biased expectation or a standard that was set too high. But also there's a culture in this game in which they set up areas for you to delve into, explore. It's super cool. It's really cool looking.
Yeah.
With all the spires and everything, the crystals sticking out.
It looks, and I guess I should say that when I said it's one of my favorite areas, I want to say it's one of my favorite areas to see,
like visually and aesthetically.
Visually,
yes,
it's so neat. Especially so every dungeon's also broken into two places, and like the first area is awesome, and then the second area gets even crazier. I think. But go back to what you're saying.
My major issue, and this is again a culture with the game going forward after the first portion, meaning after we beat Emerald and make it back to the temple, and we start diving into second dungeon, go back, blah blah. There's a culture in this game where it incentivizes you to explore, and then it punishes you for doing that without any reward. Which, sure, like again, there's ways to appropriately increase a sense of difficulty in a game without punishing your player for purchasing your game, supporting you as developers, but also like, they're feeding their time into you. It's like their time and their money. You need to start paying more respect to your players in terms of, if you're going to give them something to explore, reward them for doing that. Reward them for going into the nooks and crannies of your game and, doing this. There's so many times again and again where I'd go back in this little crack, and it's not that they weren't thinking about it. I'd go back in this little nook or cranny, see that there's nothing there, turn around, literally fucking two enemies just spawn right behind me, like spawn points right behind me. So I'm like, oh, damn it, I got. Like, have to kill these two enemies. Yeah, I got,
son.
But then 2 minutes later, same thing. I get fucking punished for exploring your game. That's something I'm super passionate about.
So
Dark Souls does it in a tasteful way where sometimes they punish you, sometimes they give you something really good.
I want to make a comment about this, right? So we're talking about the Nexus area. We're talking about the first area, right? Like
yeah.
You went in. So there are teleporters you can go in, and it sends you to a different section of this plane of map. And depending on where you go, I don't remember the reasons for it. However, this is my second time playing this game. The first time, I think I did exactly what you did, and I explored. Coming back into this game, you start in the Nexus area anyway. You start in this area, you pass the first guy, you go to your left, boom, you hit that first teleporter. And this is after you've done.
Yeah, you get that
the
one to
torches.
go across, right?
And it sends you all the way across. Or you can go to the other one and it takes you to another place that's technically across and you can cross through all this stuff and whatever. So you hit the torches. I knew I had to get the torches to get up the steps. And I also knew that nothing else mattered. So I was like,
dude,
I went in, I was like, boom, get the torch. Boom, go get the torch. Go get the really annoying torch that's up.
Yeah.
Because you were like, oh, there's that. Kind of like what we talked about. Like the game just throws a bunch of enemies at you. It's got that lip. And if you fall over that lip, there's like 20 guys right there.
Yeah.
And you either get the torch or you die or you kill everybody before. And then after that, just hit the teleporter, go up. So I knew. So that.
Oh, believe me.
And because I remember the first time I tried to do that and I got wrecked every time because there's some weird, crazy enemies in there.
They just, I don't know. I don't think that we talked about this a little bit in the first episode. If you guys want to go back and refer to it, but
go check episode 1.
Yeah. But
we're gonna refer back to that probably a lot.
But I said at one time that, oh shit, what was my thought? It's in terms of like incentivizing and like rewarding, your player for actually. It's learning. There again, talking about culture of a game when you're starting to play it, you at some point in your second playthrough learned that nothing else is important. I'm not going to explore the game. You know what I mean? That's because you just knew, right? So you just didn't fucking care. You just went through it and whatnot. Me, again, the more I talk about it, I think it was a placebo effect. I think I went into it with a pretty high standard, maybe, that wasn't met. But still, that's not to say that that's all my fault because you guys dropped the ball on a ton of different things that could have just been slightly fixed.
I think it's fair to say you went in with an expectation and you were met with something that was awesome, but then the expectation fell short. And especially in areas where you're like, there's no reason for you to have done this.
Yeah, there was no reason for you to have done it when you could have just done something else. Like I'm just so, it's tough because it's your game, right? Make the game that you guys want to make, but it's almost like I don't understand. Like I can't even understand as a gamer why you would have done some of the things that you did.
Can you give an explanation? Because like right now you're just a little vague.
Because
I'm approaching it as a different spot. Like I played it. This is my second playthrough, and I still enjoyed the game.
Like, why are you teaching your players to not explore? Why are you incentivizing your players to not explore the game that you made? Like, why are you teaching them to just run through the game? I bet if I went through and played this game again, I
have a comment.
Would probably actually like even the chests in the fog. I wouldn't even bother opening them.
That's actually the exact thing I was going to say. The very first time I played the game, I did everything in my power to open every single one of those chests.
Not important.
I explored the fog, and there's one that's like crazy buried deep in Fulgrim, where you're like in this like cave, and there's crazy enemies in there. When you get in there, in the fog, just to get that chest, and I forget what it was. I think it was like a loot or something, like something that was rarer.
Whatever. Oh, I know what you're talking about. Is it where the exquisite or
it was hard to get, like
that one
because the enemies were annoying.
Do you know about the one loot?
It was I think
the special
it was
loot?
like the demon one or something. I forget. It might have been called exquisite or something.
I don't know exactly. Did you get familiar with it?
No.
I
got familiar with the original one.
If you get familiar with if you get familiar with the original one, do you get to choose the songs?
Yeah.
So with the new one, I'm assuming because I didn't get familiar with the original one, but obviously you know how like when you played it didn't sound that great.
Yeah, it sounded like it was bad at first, and as you played it more, it got better and better and better.
So this one, like as soon as you pick it up, you like play pretty hot. Like so some of the songs you actually play sound kind of like pretty popular classical rock songs.
Really? That's cool.
And obviously you can like scroll through and like pick the songs, whatnot. So
Man, like there's so much in this game. Let's go back
that's cool.
Let's go back to the Nexus and talk about that. And we'll tear all this other stuff down later because there's so many parts about this game that are really neat. We just both did this like hair like thing at the exact same moment. So many things that were super, super cool. So let's go to the Nexus. So you go to the Nexus, you explored, you got wrecked in some places, you got. Then you're like, hey, this is pointless.
Yeah, I at some point learned, which I think is a terrible, terrible thing in a game, to stop caring about my environment, stop caring about the game.
That sucks.
At that point, I was like, I just want to beat the boss and I want to get to the next one. And let me tell you what, like this next section after this, like I'd like to hear obviously your experience because I know you like this area a lot. But
so,
I have almost nothing to say about the next area.
I like the Nexus. I like the Nexus, but then you start going up.
Yeah, the like spiral staircase
and you're dealing
thing.
with all of these like I can only compare them to like Amazons. And they have crossbows and they have throwing knives and they're crazy, they're annoying, they will kill you. They're
like the most Warframe like creatures in the game.
And they're also one of the most annoying enemies in the game at close quarters. If you can approach them from a far distance and
the crossbow dudes,
if there's only one or two, you're fine. But as you're climbing up, you're dealing with all these enemies the whole time. Then you get to the top. And the top is like it's where you learn about the brothers. Did you talk to brother something? Like, so you have the Cesters, like Cester Genessa.
Oh no.
There's a guy named there called brother man, I can't figure out. And you get a little bit more there. And you find out there's a whole nother group of like those people. And then you kind of go through this thing and you start approaching this library. Like the library is the last part before the boss.
I know about the library, yeah.
That's right before the boss. What do you think about the giant Cester Genessa?
I loved it. Yeah, I loved her.
Like it's this whole point where the whole world starts like distorting and stuff. Like things get crazy and whatever. I hated that area.
Why?
Just getting from the bottom of the Nexus,
I just ran
all the way to the top. I was never good at it. Even in this playthrough, I died.
I died, I think, once or twice.
Here's my question: did you get the elevator?
Because
I was going to ask you about this.
No, because I didn't know.
Because there's a shortcut. Yeah.
I think I actually beat it. I beat the twins on, and obviously I talked to Janessa,
well, yeah, if you talk to Janessa, you could start the boss right there.
Yeah, so I just literally ran, got to her, realized it was the boss, so...
Yeah, so like there's the Janessa at the beginning, then there's the Janessa in the middle, before you start going up, and then there's the Janessa there. Well, there's actually an elevator that you can turn on to where you can just run into the area, turn right, take the elevator all the way up, and then run. So it's a shortcut, so you could bypass all those crossbows and stuff, because that was the worst part of the game, hands down, the worst part. Then you get to the boss, which is the twins, which is like, I don't want to say the wrong thing. They're conjoined twins.
Yeah, they're like the Siamese twins, kind of.
Yeah, I didn't want to say Siamese twins.
Yeah.
I didn't know if that was right or not, but they were conjoined. And I think it's probably the most interesting boss in the game.
Yeah.
In my opinion. I think it's wildly the most...
I would almost even venture to say that fighting the enslaved Grisha was more interesting.
Man.
Because it was just cooler. It was a cooler fight. The arena was way doper. Like, you didn't
the enslaved Grisha was sweet.
Yeah, you didn't ruin...
We'll get to that in a minute.
You didn't ruin the fight with terrible, actual fucking dog shit cinematics, dude. You literally used a Team Fortress 2 format video maker to make the cutscenes for your $30 video game that went to disc. There's an enhanced version. I want to see... Dude, okay. You pull it up. You fucking pull the clip up. I want to see what the enhanced version of that cutscene where his brother dies.
Oh my gosh, okay.
And he's like...
I wish you could
freaking out.
Grab the camera right now and just show it. Show us how it was.
Dude.
Show us how it was.
Right.
So the boss, I thought it was cool. The second phase, like you killed like the baby brother.
So
and
funny.
it freaks out.
Yeah,
and then you go into this next thing, and I think the second phase was actually easier than the first phase because the first phase
he didn't have the arrows.
He was shooting those arrows. That part sucked.
Once you figure it out, you just like again, such a bad habit you pick up with this game is you just learn.
That's it.
What the AI is doing, and then.
But the trip back, so you kill a boss. Same thing. You take the gland out of this giant like.
Which, by the way. I don't know if like when you pick up the gland on the PS5 version, because you played the enhanced version on PS5, right?
Yep.
Does it give this fucking bad epileptic flash? Because when doing content,
I'm not sure.
We're gonna have to. I don't know about you. For you on my videos, I'm gonna have to cut it out or put a warning.
I'll pull up mine and I'll show it to you and we'll compare.
Because when I had pulled the gland out, and you notice how like it's kind of like a flashlight. It'll beep,
it starts pulsing and then the fog comes in.
Yeah, and then it's super bright. Yeah, it's flashy, dude. Whenever it flash, it literally for the entire screen would just flash orange, like a big orange screen.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so I have to put like a literal like epilepsy warning or something in my video before I release it or something.
But
glad I wasn't streaming it because like fucking epileptic person just trying to watch Mortal Shell.
Oh no. Yeah, well, I'll pull mine up and we'll compare and look. So anyway, so you get the gland, the fog comes in. That means all the enemies change. We talked about this with Imrod. I think this was the best trip back. I think it was like
it was the smoothest.
It was super crazy. Like the whole like library that was already distorted was even more distorted. And talk about level designs. I think the levels are phenomenal. I think they're so cool. And the running back, you're hitting the like teleporters and dealing with stuff. And it was just good. It was just good. Aside from the enemies. But.
It's just like almost there as far as like the geography. Because I think they did a great job on the geography in this game. But the thing is, like I said, if you're going to go that hard on a core aspect of the game, which clearly the geography has to, like for Fulgrim alone, with as much work as they put into the geography of that and like the map and how freaking awesome. Crazy it is. It's awesome, dude. For as much work as they put into that, you've got to put fucking something at the end of that tunnel to feed me, to like reward me, to
makes sense,
to give me that dopamine for being in your game. And like immersion lost so often. Dang. So often when I get to this like nook, bro, and I turn around like nothing, turn around 3 enemies, and I'm like this is the 15th time this has happened. I'm pretty over it. So when I got through the Nexus, beat twins, after that, because I remember I told you, I was like, yo, I just beat twins because I took a break from like my playthrough or whatever. You texted me back and you were like something like, LOL, have fun with the next session or the next section because it sucks or something.
Which is a good segue.
Yeah.
So the next level, right, is going into the boss of Tarsus.
That's right.
So you go in and it's like these, like, it reminds me of Dark Souls Catacombs.
Yeah. Which I thought was pretty sick.
Super cool. I mean, it felt very Dark Souls. You're dealing with these crazy enemies. I completely forgot. These, like, guys that have, like, swords in their bodies, and they're, like, pulling their swords out and throwing them at you.
Throw their freaking heads at you.
Throw their heads when you get low on health that explode into poison, and if you don't have those mushrooms that we talked about last time.
Yeah.
With the 2 minutes of...
I didn't do that, by the way.
Man.
I kept telling myself
I definitely did by the time I went back. It was nice. And Teal, freaking any poison damage he takes, he heals instead.
Oh, that's cool.
So, yeah.
Is that a cheese?
Maybe for that area. But that's his ability. If he would take poison damage, he heals instead. And he's a big like status kind of a build, even though all he does is poison. So you go through these catacombs. You eventually encounter Grisha, enslaved Grisha.
Yeah, the enslaved Grisha,
which is really cool. It's in this like cool little like arena that's like
probably the coolest boss fight.
Kind of icy and stuff, and it acts just like the old Grisha, but it's bigger.
It's bigger. It's got a big
huge, crazy cage
cage.
on its head.
The arena
looks
is
super
sick
cool.
because you go in and it's like this big ice arena kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like it's super dope. And there's a little bit of backstory when you talk to Janissa about it. I'm pretty sure you talked to Janessa about the enslaved Grisha a little bit.
She mentions it at one
Yeah,
point.
like how like they. I don't remember all the backstory for it, but it was just kind of cool that you got a little bit of backstory about the Grisha a little bit because they kind of like had enslaved it and then worshipped it.
Yeah.
Um,
Backstory in this game is great.
yeah, they did a great job on
So many good things
on the lore
So
and
many-
whatnot, but
so many unfortunate things.
so
But
you know,
but yeah.
you get through that and then
you actually go into like an actual ice cavern. Like it's a big, huge underground cave, obviously, and everything's snowy and icy. And the reason, I forget what the reason is behind it. I want to say like there was someone that was basically sealed. And it's all magic related, I'm sure. I honestly forget. But it's this big ice cavern.
yeah, it's just
Pants
a big.
is like, I don't know. I mean, it's an ice cavern.
I really
through.
don't.
There were some unique enemies. Boom, you eventually get to the boss.
Because you know why I think we have very little to say about this? Because we learned at this point in the game to just run through it.
Well, I mean, there's only so much snow. Like, you're in a cool and you fight an enemy and you go in a room, you maybe get an item, you fight more enemies. Then you go to the next section and you fight an enemy and you go across a bridge. There was one point which the second playthrough I completely bypassed. But there's one point you can go down, you go downstairs, and there's like this wizard thing that like blocks your path. Did you encounter that at all?
Nope.
Well, the point is, you go around and you come up and you kill it, so then it can't raise this like ice shield. It was actually really cool the very first time. The second time, I completely bypassed it and came up behind and killed it.
Yeah.
So anyway, you make it to the boss. You make it to the boss room. One of the coolest boss rooms in the game, I think.
Yeah, it's like that big, you know.
Because you have this big, huge ice sculpture. Tarsus is sitting. It actually, that might not be Tarsus. I think it's like, it's some female, I think that's like trapped in the snow. But the whole arena is like this ice thing. Like a big, huge thing of ice. And you just see like people.
Yeah, just like float. I didn't see it at first until I was leaving.
So cool.
Yeah, it's pretty
it looks
dope.
so great. And then so you go in, you get the chalice, and you get attacked by Tarsus. Now, our experience of this was completely different. What was your experience?
I keep saying it over and over again, but it's really just like my overwhelming experience this game is that I learned after fighting through the twins crap to just run through the game. And I don't know, like maybe I just had that kind of, maybe I'm fed up with this game kind of thing, the spirit that I had. I beat that entire section in probably like 30 or 40 minutes, boss included. Like
that's crazy.
I beat him on my first try, like, and I just walked out.
That blows me away. Like the very first time I played the game, he was hands down the hardest boss in the game.
That's crazy to me.
Hands down, hardest boss. I couldn't beat him. It took me several times. Maybe thinking back originally, maybe I just was underpowered. I'm not sure. I couldn't tell you. This time it took me a few tries and I still struggled because he's very he's one of those bosses that he runs away, hides himself in ice.
Yeah.
He'll slide across the screen, and if he hits you, you're hurt. And then he'll start teleporting. He'll do a swing attack and then disappear, and then appear on the other side, and then come in, and if you're not paying attention, attack you. And his phase 2 is a little bit crazier. He has some really cool abilities, causing like the ice spikes and stuff to come up. But you just deal with it, and you block his stuff, and you beat him down. And you fight him eventually. You beat him. I struggled. You didn't. You said you beat him the first try.
I think it's because I think it's a combination of maybe three really. The hardening. I think maybe the gimmick of this game
We also had two different shells, I should say.
Yeah, yeah, because
So we
I was an
approached
air
it
drim.
differently. Yeah, you had a lot more health than I did.
I think a combination of the hardening gimmick in this game, I think it might have damaged the game a little bit more than. Well, okay, I shouldn't say that because the game is still cool with it. It didn't damage it. It damaged the difficulty of the game by the gimmick itself was going to make the game a little bit easier once people like understood like for me, I didn't parry at all the entire game. I just hardened and I had patience with the game and endurance because that's like if you're not going to do those things.
I tried to parry and I sucked at it.
Yeah, I'm terrible at those kinds of things. And
But
we've
when I
talked
did
about that
it,
a
when I
little
did
bit.
it, it was awesome.
Yeah.
But when I didn't do it, it sucked.
But so the gimmick in the game, the hardening, I think kind of damages the difficulty a little bit. The conditioning your players to just run kind of thing damages.
I think this game, this level specifically, I think had a lot of running.
Yeah, and
You're
then
just running through.
maybe like so the AI, dude. The AI is just like I picked up on that boss so fast that I don't even really remember anything that I did in it. Like I remember the only thing I vividly remember is like the dash forward attack and then him going invisible, because the way when he would go invisible, it wasn't like how in Dark Souls 3 oh, what's her name, it's right on the tip of my tongue,
The dancer?
not the dancer, it's a late game boss. She would
shoot. The one I'm thinking of, I think, Dark Souls 2.
There's one, someone will say it in the comments or something. Dark Souls 3, there's a certain boss that will like go invisible and has a scythe and will like kind of do this like underslash kind of thing and send like this big ray at you that's like coming through the floor, and it will follow you and it won't like let up. Or she'll like pop up behind you.
I'm not sure.
And attack you kind of thing. So as soon as I saw him start to do that, I was like, oh, it's like that Freya. Or no. Oh, it starts with an F. Maybe that's close.
An F? I'm not sure.
But
I think I know who you're talking about, but I'm not sure.
It was pretty similar. It's not Freya. That's literally Final Fantasy 9. But
I've never played Final Fantasy 9.
It's just like, I don't know. As soon as I picked up on it, I was like, oh, it's kind of like that fight. And he always appeared in the same spot.
He appeared
around me.
I think he appeared. It's a specific, like, if you're looking forward, he always appears, I think, in the direction you're moving. Left. I think it was in the direction you're moving. Like, if you run, he'll appear there, or he'll appear directly behind you. And you
that's what I would do. Is I would go. That's what I was saying. Like, I'd be able to. I knew how to manipulate the AI. He was in a specific hard.
He appeared in a specific way depending on how.
Yeah, so I would just trigger him to be behind me, and then I would turn around and like prepare for the next sequence. So I'd run up, like,
it was my
leash him a little bit, get aggro him to do a certain set of moves. If he would change it up and do something I didn't want him to do, I'd be like, okay, this isn't the time I attack him, so I just back. It was just like,
I wish I had my original footage from when I played this game a year ago, so you could see how hard that boss was for me. He was so hard.
Yeah,
but
yeah, so I just don't.
That's crazy. That's wild.
Unfortunately, I don't have a whole lot to say for that because I beat it super quick, and even following up after that.
So the run out was easy.
Yeah,
I don't think I struggled at that at all. It's at this point we've already beaten 2 bosses. We've already ran out of both of those. We know exactly this level doesn't change. Not like the Nexus did. The Nexus changed. It was wild. It's really neat. I think that's the one thing I can say that was really cool, right? So the first level, we said with Imrod, you run back, you just cut out the shortcuts. You dealt with a lot of new enemies and stuff. That was the first time we experienced it.
Yeah.
Wild. The second time, at least in the Nexus, because you could play these in any order, but we did the Nexus second, it was a completely different level going back. And I think that was cool. This one, the third one, nothing changed. it was the same old, same old. You got the glands, you're running out, you're dealing with some of the enemies, and most of them you just ran past.
Mhm.
And once you got outside, even the run back to the tower wasn't horrible. You just got back, and then cool, you gave the gland to what's his name? And for all intent and purposes, that's the end of the game. You have one final boss left, which you then just talk to the thing that you've been given the glands to, and then you fight him.
Yeah, there's again
like there's nothing really there.
Nope. There's no efforts that you have to put towards the end of the game to get to like the final boss or anything.
No. Which is disappointing in my mind. I feel
dude,
I'm trying not to like, I don't want to bash this game to such a degree that it sounds like this game's awful or horrible and people shouldn't play it. But like the more I sit here and we talk about it, it bums me out.
It's hot and cold. It's a super hot and cold game.
If you've never played Mortal Shell and you're thinking about picking it up, I just want to say this. Get it on the cheap. I think that's safe, and then play it. I think it's enjoyable if you've never played it before. If you're considering buying it again, don't. I don't know why you would buy it a second time.
Yeah, if you're buying it for several consoles.
Granted, I bought it twice.
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't spend money on it more than one time. And the only thing that I think at this point that would get me to play it again would be the DLC. So maybe that's something that we come back and we revisit and touch on.
Maybe.
And stuff like that.
I've seen some of the DLC. I don't know. It's enough for me to play it again.
It could be cool.
I don't know if it's enough for you to play it again.
Yeah, it's just like well, like I was saying, it's a super hot and cold game. So they did a lot of good things well. They did a lot of things super well. They knocked it out of the park, but like
Can we talk about this? Cuz like right now we're kind of in the boom, we've talked about the game. Right? Yeah. I think the fairness is to critique, and I'm purposely not talking about the final boss right now. And there's a reason for that.
Yeah.
I want to approach the critiques and be like, here's what the game did well, I think, because I think there's a lot more of what it did well than what it didn't. But what it didn't outshines what it did well, which is unfortunate.
I think that might even be tough for me to say, because I might have agreed with you before actually sitting down to have this like full blown conversation like we did just now. But I don't know. For me now, they did a lot of things really well that it's almost like I'm not gonna throw you like a bone and just leave you at your day, or like leave you be because you made like a Souls-like game and it did like pretty okay. You know what I mean? The thing is, you guys did pretty good. You put a lot of effort into certain areas, but they weren't the areas that you should have been focused on for your first initial release in this genre, because you have some shoes that you need to fill. You have like some expectations that certain players are going to be playing at, especially if you're approaching this genre. Yeah, Dark Souls has been out for a while.
I wish I knew how many people were in the team. I couldn't find. I tried to look to see how many people actually made this game.
Yeah,
and I couldn't find it.
And that all applies too, because I don't, like you said, I don't know how big this team was. It could be 7 guys. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. I don't.
And if it was 7 people, holy crap!
Yeah, kudos
you did
to you.
A great job.
Yeah,
like. It's good. It just didn't meet those parts that we wanted it to meet.
Yeah. So I'm not going to throw you a bone and leave you be because you made a Souls-like game that was like pretty okay, because you guys missed a lot of, like I said, a lot of major components, and you missed out on a lot of preconceived, again, I hate the idea of a preconceived notion or a preconceived expectation, because you should go into everything with an open mind.
Yeah.
But you were undoubtedly making a Souls-like game.
Oh yeah.
And there was so a couple things you did well. I will say that you made a Souls-like game and it wasn't awful.
Mhm.
Like
I think that's a plus. I mean,
that in itself is a plus. You're doing something that other people aren't doing, and the fact that it was like fully fleshed out, the art was all there.
yeah,
That's the thing I think maybe that other people aren't doing, because if other people are like making a Souls-like game, it's like got the Minecrafty kind of feel, like the low poly texturing to it. So you guys went full blown on the visuals. Awesome.
the game. I think.
Except for the twins fight. You guys really fucked up on the twins
that
fight.
That one camera.
Yeah, that whole dude.
That's funny. I think that's fair. Maybe we can show it.
Maybe
if I can find a clip and we'll show it.
Yeah.
But I think it's fair to say that the art direction and the art of the game, from pretty much the very beginning to the very end, almost the very end, was really good, phenomenal. I mean, all the different enemies were all really unique. All the bosses were really cool looking. Stuff from like all the different shells.
Mm-hmm.
Even the big boss, the very final one, was like, this is really interesting.
Yeah, the design was pretty cool.
And I mean, so the shells, Cesar Janessa, the levels were all looked great. The art direction was on point.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to add that the lore of the game, I think, was really good.
Yeah, it was. You guys put a lot of work into like the voice acting was all super good, which I look for in a game.
The unlocking of the lore by getting each shell's ability gave you a little bit more lore, and you got to learn more about that person as who they were when they were alive. That was super cool.
That was super cool, and I think it was cool that it like was applicable to what exactly the ability was that you were getting. So it made a little bit of sense.
The familiarity of items I liked.
That was pretty cool. It was interesting.
It was a nice take on like it, because it didn't just, it gave you something for using that item over and over again. It was a really cool mechanic. What else was really good?
I unfortunately don't have a whole
I don't know
lot.
if there's anything else that was.
And now,
I don't know if there's anything else that sticks out.
My problem now is that the pile of things that I don't like is so much bigger.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Like, there were so many great things, but I don't know.
I don't even think.
I think a lot of
I don't even want to
bad fall into the same categories.
Yeah, I don't even think I want to say that you guys. Well, again, this is constructive criticism. You guys have a great start with like visual, appeal and stuff like that, and actually how the game feels at the start. But the thing, like, you're creating a Souls-like game where I'm a fantasy, like, I guess, like, character of some sort, whatever I am, like the foundling or whatever.
Yeah, the foundling. Yep.
Fighting my way through this world, like most of what we're doing is fighting creatures. You guys dropped the ball on the fighting part. Like, I learned all of the enemies super quick. The AI was just not as, smart or as fleshed out as I needed it to be to like challenge me as a player, which ultimately goes into I'm not gonna overly complain about too many things. That's my main thing.
No, I think I was gonna say, like,
and that's gonna lead up to the last boss.
Right. So I was gonna say, like, where the combat is good, it's really good. Right? Like, the downside to the combat is the enemies, I think. Like, one, we got to a point.
It's good to feel it feels good to fight, but it doesn't feel good to fight what I'm fighting.
Right. Because I mean, we even got to a point where most of the enemies were like, one hit, you're dead.
But then they're like, okay, so we'll just throw like 50 freaking cheese enemies at you, and
that's where you're like, this is pointless. Why are you throwing all these guys at me? I would rather fight more unique enemies and interesting enemies than the same old little dudes that have loots that are just chasing.
It's just annoyance, and after a while, it's almost like, again, constructive criticism. I can't say it enough, but it's almost a little insulting sometimes. Like, I know that can come off a little like pretentious or something.
But
like,
it is. You either fight them or you just learn to run around everything.
Yeah, like, okay.
And there's no reason to fight.
Yeah, right. Like, okay, because I
would be interested in how far, like, how little could we fight and still beat the game?
I mean, that
Like,
would just be a
could we
speed
just-
run.
Well, yeah, but I mean, like,
Legit, just a speed run.
I don't have the
basically.
patience to do that.
But
To
so
do it again.
as far as the final boss goes, I watched you do that fight. Our fight was literally the same. You just did it for 5 times longer, and you didn't give the patience. You didn't give the game enough credit to actually fight those little dudes the way that the game wanted you to. You just ran to the corner of the arena and fought them like one by one.
I would like to say I was pushed to the corner of the arena first, and then I fought them as they approached.
But
More than like I didn't
still
actively
just kept doing it.
I didn't actively run away from them to fight them. It just kind of that's just how it worked out.
Well, okay, so I didn't finish the last boss fight, and I'm gonna tell you this: I'm not going to, because I went in, I tried to fight it like 3 times, and every time I would get close, and I would just die because like they started sending all these little enemies at me.
Yeah.
But the fact is, like, I literally, after the first attempted fight, I learned everything that the main boss fight was offering to me.
Yeah. The boss doesn't do anything special. Like, all the other bosses by themselves are more unique and more interesting than the final boss. Even Imrod. And
Yeah.
Imrod was this generic kind of I'm going to beat you with a flaming hammer type of an enemy, and he was still more unique.
Yeah.
This final boss, he ran away, jumped at you, slashed at you, maybe rolled on you, created this whirlpool thing, and threw a bunch of ads at you while attacking you, making it ungodly annoying, absolutely ridiculous. Did these stupid wave things that you had to roll through or dash through, or
again, it wasn't hard, but it was just an irritant, and it was like insulting a little bit. Give me a little bit more credit as a player.
Yeah,
like, give me a little bit more of a challenge.
It's literally where everything fell apart as far as gameplay. You're in this big empty space. It's not even like the boss looked cool. I'll give that.
Yeah.
But the world that you fought the boss in was bland, and just you're in a big pool of water. And it felt like it made it feel like the game wasn't I hate to say like companies produce games and they don't they just get to a point where it's like, oh, this game, even though it's not done, we're going to release it. I don't want to say that that's what they did, but it does feel unfinished. They may have produced a game and they're like, this is exactly what we wanted to do. And if that's what you did, cool. That's awesome. I'm glad you did what you did. But from a player perspective, it felt unfinished.
Yeah, you could have done a lot better. But from me, I would have to assume that for them it was finished because A, they put it to disc, and then B, they put an enhanced edition out on top of that.
Yeah,
one.
and then enhanced, as far as I know, aside from adding music and upping the graphics, I don't know that anything was, and obviously we got DLC. I think the DLC came out the same time as the enhanced released. So they did create new content, which is cool. But the game itself, I don't necessarily know. I would have to look. I would actually have to actively look up the comparisons to see what was added or changed.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, from my experience, I had a way better experience the very first time I played it, which was great. It was a great experience the first time, and the second time was fun too. But my perspective was like harshly criticized as you played it, and you're like, bro, I don't know. And then as we talked about it, because I didn't have this before, I tried to get my buddy to play, and he got to the first time where you ran from the first boss. He's like, no, I'm done. He didn't even want to deal with it. But you enjoyed it the first time, the first boss. Running back. You're like, oh, this was really interesting. You may not have like loved it, but... And so we got to continue talking about it, and then as I'm hearing another perspective, my viewpoint's a little lower, which sucks because I don't want you guys to hear us and then your viewpoint be lower. But I mean, that's ultimately what's going to happen. So hopefully you listened to the first episode and decided to go out and buy it.
Right. But ultimately, that's what, the goal would be for you to watch episode 1. And I know, dude.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I did. Funny. But ultimately, the goal would be for you to listen to episode 1 and be like, man, this game's cool. And then maybe you go get that game and then you start to play it and then you're like, man, this game's kind of cool. And then you watch episode 2 to catch up and you're like, what? They fucking hate this game? I liked this game so much. Well, let us know.
Good. That's awesome.
The whole point is like,
that's what I'm here. Do you
involvement
agree?
And stuff.
Do you agree with us? Do you completely disagree? Did you have a blast? Did you hate it also? Did you think it's stupid and a waste of time? That's what I want to know.
Yeah. Let us know in the comments below, excuse me, get us up in Discord, there's a Facebook group. Let us know on Facebook, whatever, let us know below what you thought of the game.
Yeah, I agree. You want to tell them where to find you?
You can find me on Twitch Monday, Thursday, Saturday, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Find me on YouTube, Twitter. That's my main plugs right now. NevrEndingPants. No second E in the never.
Yeah.
Where can they find you, dog?
It's Never.
Yeah, Never.
R-E. Oh, well, it's Nev R ending.
Yeah, Nev R ending.
Yeah.
Never ending. Yeah.
Anyway, you can find me on Twitch, RX_Bishop_MD, Twitch, Instagram, YouTube, all of those things. I stream every day. And I think by this point every night. Almost every night.
Hell yeah.
So I started a new after dark stream.
Let's go.
So playing stuff like Halo and whatnot.
Sick.
Just for kicks. You could join me. Come and say hi and let's play. I think that's it.
That's right.
Are we going to tell them what's next week?
Well, next week we have a pretty exciting episode next week, but all you need to know is that we have a guest.
Ooh.
We have a guest. But
if you're not hearing this part, it's because that changed.
Right. Got cut out.
And so next week we're going to have something awesome planned. Just so that way I throw both depending on which happened. Right. So, our tip of the day, if you're not good,
get
good.